So Jerremy, we were talking pre-show, and you said something very interesting that I want to dig into a little bit. You say you believe that Jesus, who I think we all know, is he was very rich. Okay.
Monetarily.
All right. So financially rich.
Financially loaded.
All right. Well, everybody thinks you're full of crap now. So you got to explain.
Good.
What do you mean?
Good. This has been my hot take, man, for the last 3 to 4 years. And it all started really with just the study of money. That's probably my specialty if I have one. Studying money, studying the relationship of money, and studying people's relationship with money, how it moves, how they interact with it. And it led me down some paths, as one will, of reading. And you got to read the good old book, right?
Yep.
So I'm going to ask you a question. At birth, Jesus was given 3 gifts. Do you remember which 3 gifts he was given?
Frankincense, gold, and myrrh.
What was that middle one?
Gold.
Gold. How much gold, Jason?
So I used to know this because I was a pastor for a long time.
I know.
I used to know this, and I honestly have forgotten that.
Well, it might be a known amount. At this particular moment in my life, I don't know the amount. I have done some research, and it isn't verified anywhere in the Bible or any other religious text, but there are certain context clues that you can get a general idea that it's probably a decent amount. So I'll give you one of those context clues. So the king at the time, King Herod, was sent these wise men. Fun fact, it also wasn't 3 wise men. It was just wise men. Could have been 2, could have been 200.
That's correct.
Who knows? I don't know. Could have been a lot more than, but it's more than one. Wise men. So these wise men were sent from Jerusalem to Bethlehem, which is about 6 miles away. So it's not extremely far. So the reason that's an important context clue is, well, King Herod knew that the person being born was going to be born as the king of the Jews. So he was aware that this was a very, very important person that was being born onto this earth. And so he wanted to make sure that that particular person was given a gift. So these wise men, or magi, went to Jesus, to his birthplace in the manger, and provided him with those 3 gifts. Now, in some research, if you are a king, Jason, I want to give you a gift. I'm like, hey man, you're a pretty good king. Welcome to kingship. I like you.
Yeah.
Blessings on your family. 50 pounds of gold. That's a lot, dude.
Yeah.
That's a lot of gold. And when you talk about 50 pounds, it's like, well, if there were more than, let's say, 3 wise men, and they were on camels, and they only had to go 6 miles, could it have been farther? Or could it have been more gold? And the answer is it could have been. It's a possibility. So then we have to imagine, like, what if they brought 2 humongous cases, each were 50 pounds, and had 100 pounds of gold? Is that also a possibility?
It's possible.
You have to say, sure. But at the same time, 2,000 years ago, frankincense and myrrh also weren't the cheapest, easiest things to come around with. And fun fact, they're still not to this day.
Yep.
You don't know how to make frankincense. I don't know how to make myrrh. And Justin over there doesn't know how to buy it. So it's pretty hard to track down those 2 spices, specifically back then in the desert. They're hard to come by as well. So when you start with that thought in mind, that Jesus at birth was given so much because he was worth it, and he didn't have to do anything at all except exist to receive so much blessings and monetary backing, that it starts to make you shift some of the we have to grind, toil, work, stress, strive, hustle, and pursue money in order to have it. It takes that load away. So many people, Jason, they find nobility in poverty. And you'll be very, very familiar with the term, oh, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Mm-hmm. I worked hard for everything I had.
Yeah.
Jesus was born with a gold spoon in his mouth. And so it starts to create this very unique disposition and distance from the modern day Christian of their fears of wealth and money and impact and shining brightly and not being materialistic, to what a lot of evidence that I've uncovered through 300 plus hours to date of research in Jesus and his ministry and how much money it seems to me that he actually had access to.
So I have to admit that I'm my mind is blown a little bit because I'd never thought about those three gifts, right? I mean,
Come on, baby.
Because you're right. When he was given frankincense, gold, and myrrh, but that's it. Like, we forget after the Christmas story, I go, well, what happened to that stuff? What did they do with it? And was it just a couple of coins, a couple of shekels?
Probably not.
Or was it 50 pounds of gold? And that's actually, when you started, my brain was thinking, well, what would have been the appropriate gift for a newborn king, the son of a king at that time? I just saw something on Instagram the other day where some Saudi prince or something had a birthday party. And did you see this? So some Saudi prince, I don't know who it was. It may not have been Saudi. Forgive me if it's in the wrong country. But some Middle Eastern prince, and all the A-listers from around the world showed up, and they gave them like Bugatti Chirons. They gave them, and I think there was a.
Well, that's my present for being on this podcast, right? A Bugatti.
That's later. We don't talk about that. But who was the John Cena? So John Cena was there, and he gave him $200,000 in cash, and he was looked down upon as giving the cheapest gift out of everybody that gave him. So to put that in context,
can you imagine?
Yeah, put that in context. So this prince, who's going to be king, who's worth a gazillion dollars, who doesn't make it to the Forbes list because the real richest people in the world aren't in that magazine. It stands to reason that a king named Jesus, when he was born, who was obviously given gold,
King of Kings,
would have been given a lot of gold.
King of Kings.
And what did they do with it? What did Joseph do with it?
King of Kings, man. I mean, the thing is, it's a very unique perspective for me, and I love talking about this with you. That's why it was like my hot take, because I know your background and also how much you've studied. And what it does is it helps me get all excited and passionate, because my favorite thing on earth is creating mental liberation, right? Essentially giving people ideas that they might not have ever had before, and just providing this new belief structure of what's available and what's possible, and teaching them that. For example, not to get off too much of a tangent, you probably know this, but you can rent out your stocks like you rent out a house. I had that conversation with the Uber driver on the way here. Really cool guy named Larry. He's retired, 50 years old, owns a mobile billboard service. That's what he does. He has this truck and his billboards on it, and he charges like $1,500 a day for companies to run ads on the billboard. I'm like, amazing, good for you. And then I ask him this, like, hey, did you know you can rent out your stocks like you rent out a house? And he's like, what? One of those like Uber turns. You're very rare to get an Uber turn. I got a full 180. And we just had this really easy, basic conversation. But when you start to piece together these wild concepts that are so right in front of us, that are so obvious, that are so tangible, back to our boy JC, right? There's a story that you're probably very familiar with, the parable of the tenants. Can you regale our listeners, the best of your memory, because I'm not perfect with this one, the tenants and the story that unfolds?
Well, is this, if you're talking about the one, I think it's where the vineyard owner rented out the vineyard to someone else, the tenants, and then they were doing so good, and then the owner sent back to receive the rent. Is that what you're talking about?
Almost.
Okay.
The one where they buried the three people.
Oh, the talents.
Talents.
The talents. Okay.
Yes.
The parable of the talents. Okay, yeah. So they took the talent. So one guy was given 10, one guy was given, I think, 5, and one guy was given 1. And he said, go and reproduce.
Who's
the guy? The shepherd, or the guy, Jesus, said, go and reproduce, or go profit from this. One guy doubled it to 10 to 20. One guy doubled the 5 to 10. And the guy who had 1 was like, I don't want to lose anything, so I'm just going to put it in the bank and leave it sit in the bank. And then when the guy the master comes back to collect, he said, oh, well, you doubled your 10. Well, here's a bazillion more. And you doubled your 5. Here's a bazillion more. What'd you do with your 1? And the guy says, well, I knew you were a hard master and you didn't want me to lose any money, so I just played it safe and I put it in the bank so that it wouldn't lose any money. And he goes, because you didn't do this. I'm taking from you what you have. I'm giving it to the guy that had 10. And you're going to be put in prison, essentially. That's the quick story.
Yes, exactly. So what's fascinating is that parable was told by Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning he was able, and maybe this is a real story, maybe it's an educational example, but he is aware, and this story tells a very telling tale that our guy knows how to invest. He is aware of the compounding effects.
Yeah.
So if he knows that it's even possible, I mean, if I gave you $10 million, $10,000, could you double it? Most people are like, maybe over a certain period of time. But just the fact that he's aware that you can double that amount of money, to me says that not only did he start with so much blessings, but then him and his father, they still worked as carpenters, which that's a great career to this day. Someone who can build, right, carpentry. That's an amazing craft now. So back then it's even more valuable. So not only are they still working, but they're also simultaneously investing all that money, you would assume, over a period of time.
Now, I know the thing I remember in my studies about Jesus' ministry, for those 3 years that he was doing his ministry work, he didn't work. He left the carpentry beside, which, by the way, side note, the carpentry thing wasn't what it is today. It was probably more of a mason than he was a carpenter, because they did things with rocks and stone more than they did with wood, because they didn't have chairs.
Maybe even a house builder.
Exactly.
You could argue.
But when he was working in ministry for those 3 years or so, he was supported by the wealthy women who followed him. So there were wealthy women who supported the ministry and paid for his needs and all the disciples that were with him.
Wait a minute. Now, this is really controversial. You got to hold on for a second.
Yep.
Are you telling me that even though Jesus was loaded, he still took money from other people?
Well, I didn't know he was loaded, but I knew the other half.
So that in itself is another incredible insight.
Yeah.
Because he has a bunch of money that he was born into. He's a trust fund baby. Born into wealth. And still receives money from all of these other people. Judas had a job. Do you remember the job of Judas?
Oh, he was the money keeper.
The what?
He kept the money.
He kept the money. So meaning, even though Jesus had so much, other people wanted to give him things because he realizes at this time the energy of giving. Because if you are given something, the Bible says, if you give, you will receive more. He doesn't want to take away from that person's ability to receive more, so he has to receive their money. And what's he going to do with it? He has a place to store it. So Judas is the guy carrying around the money, which is one of the reasons, in my opinion, that he becomes so jealous, is because Jesus has so much and is fully detached from it. That's the big message I'm coming with, is money is an amazing tool. It's a brick. That brick can either break a window, as Dave Ramsey says, or build a house. But Jesus saw that as a tool and just simply had no connection, no tying to the money. He just used it as an energy, realizing what it was for and what it was useful. And that drove Judas to a greedy state.
So we're talking with Jerremy Alexander Newsome today on the Root of All Success podcast. Flew in from California. Actually, he's a Nashville native, just recently moved to California. I'm not even going to ask. I'm not going to ask why that happened. But here he is today, here on the Root of All Success. He's the founder of Real Life Trading and is known as the Tony Robbins of stock trading. And so money is kind of his thing. So this idea of Jesus being rich was not at all planned for today's show, but I think that's the title of the show, was Jesus Rich. I think that's what we're going to go with. And because it's an interesting thing, because in Christendom today, you were talking about this, the badge of poverty. I think, is that the phrase you used? There seems to be a lot of that. And it creates a bad money story in people's minds about, well, we can't have abundance because Jesus didn't have abundance, or we can't have abundance because rich people, the needle thing, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich person to go to enter the kingdom of heaven. But that's so misapplied and misunderstood. David, Solomon, richest men in the world at the time.
Whole books dedicated to this guy.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a fun one, man. It's easier for a camel to go through an eye of a needle than a rich man enter God's kingdom, right? I had many people say, well, this is a direct quote, Newsome. There's no reason to get rich while you're on earth.
Yeah.
And my thought to that, it was really my biggest conundrum. Because I've wanted to write this book about Jesus and his monetary physical wealth for so long, but that was one of the linchpins I couldn't figure out. I was driving with my family from somewhere in California. I'm driving in an RV. So we took a 2-month summer vacation, me and the family, all the kids, all piled in this RV and drove around the country. It was amazing. And as I'm driving there on a nothing interesting road, boom, hits me in the head. Like lightning bolt. It's just like, wait a minute. That's the answer. It is that simple. Because Jesus, although he taught in parables, he also used a lot of hyperboles.
I finally got it. It's the brand new Relay Bank credit card. So check it out. I'm gonna do a little unboxing for you so you can check this out. So here we go. Nice little case, kind of like the American Express. You know, they're not playing. They're doing it right. Oh, look at this. There's a quote right inside that says, "Success is having to worry about every damn thing in the world except money." Johnny Cash. That's pretty good. I've not heard that one. Oh, this is nice. A little thing on the back, up to 1.5% cash back, no annual fees or interest, 30-day billing cycle. And there it is. It's the Relay credit card. It's a Visa. So I'm not going to show you my number, but there it is. Look at that. Boom. Go check out Relay Bank. Go to therealjasonduncan.com/relay, and you could start banking with one of the best banks in the world.
So hyperbole is something that's so true it's untrue. Meaning, like, don't worry about the splinter in your brother's eye if you have a rafter in your, like, no one's gonna have a rafter in their eye. This giant piece of wood, like, that's not possible. But what he's getting at is the symbolism behind it. So many people think that the eye of a needle that a camel can go through is simply put some type of wall or gate in Jerusalem, and they're like, if the camel gets small enough, maybe you can shove them in there. So they wanted to make it a literal statement, which I'm not going to disagree that can't be a possibility. My thesis is simply, what if it's real, right? What if Jesus is saying you can't get into God's kingdom, right? It's impossible to get into God's kingdom rich. Because when you die, you can't take anything with you. And that's how you get into God's kingdom. You're not going into heaven unless you're dead. So once you die, you then go into God's kingdom, because once you die, you lose all of your monetary and material riches. Therefore, equation is solved. All is well in the world. You can't get into God's kingdom rich because you're going to die. Can't take it with you. So have as much as you want here, because once you die, bye-bye. Right? It's gone anyway. And that was such a beautiful, revelation for me, because at the same instant, so many people battle that phrase, and it is so simple to me and obvious, where it's like, if we all want to go one particular place and we can't get there unless we're dead, you can either enjoy it here and make this your heaven, have as much riches as you want here, or get it there when you're dead. Either way.
You know, it's an interesting perspective that came to me a few years ago about investing, because that's your thing. So we're going to talk about that a lot, of course.
Yeah.
Is that Jesus said, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, where thieves break in and steal, but instead store up for yourselves treasures in heaven."
Correct.
That are eternal. That the word and phrase "store up" is invest. And so what he's saying is, don't invest in things that are going to go away. Invest instead in things that'll translate. Well, what are the only things that translate? It's us. It's humans. It's our souls that translate. So when that clicked for me, I was like, oh, that doesn't. He wasn't meaning don't invest at all. It's a matter of perspective. Like, it's fine to have gold. It's fine to have silver, and I think there's plenty of evidence of that throughout the scriptures. Joseph of Arimathea, who was a follower of Jesus, was a very rich man.
Very rich man.
And he donated his tomb for Jesus. That was his tomb that they got used to bury him. So it's not about not necessarily investing here. It's about making sure that you're investing in things that translate. Because the gold, the silver, the stocks, the bonds, the real estate don't move. But if I take time investing in you, if I take time in investing in an apprentice like Justin, who's behind the camera today, if I take time in investing that's the potential that gets to move into eternity.
I totally agree. Because if we think about the book itself, right, the Bible being written, that's an investment. Writing that, the individuals who wrote it not only took time, which is our biggest investment, our biggest asset, but they had to spend some level of money to actually do it. So that in itself is, if you invest in something that is so beautiful and so transcendent that it can escape time and the passage of time, that can be here for eons or for generations, I totally agree with your point. I think that was really the message behind that, is if you are investing, the best return that you will ever make, the best investments that you'll ever make, are things that will last many, many, many years, that cannot get eaten by rodents or moths over this period of 10 years. Don't put all of your money into something that can vanish, but put more of your money into something that can last for eternity. Yeah. But even that, do we still have 5 more minutes on this topic?
Oh yeah.
You're going to love this.
We got a lot more time than that.
Even that. So when Jesus said, don't invest in things like they can get eaten by moths. Do you remember the story when Jesus was on his way to Jairus' house? Jairus was the father of the daughter who was sick, and he was going to go and produce one of the greatest miracles in the Bible, right? Returning this teenage girl from the dead. On his way there, like 3 verses before he gets to Jairus' house, this woman reaches out and touches and grabs Jesus' cloak as he's walking through an entire group of people.
Big crowd.
Huge crowd of people, and she gets healed, I believe, of 12 years of bleeding.
Yep.
Instantly. And he turns to the woman and says, you had so much faith, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but you had so much faith, you had so much conviction, you had so much belief in me, that it was your belief and your faith that healed you. Now, to me, my question when I read that is, how did she know that it was Jesus' garment that she was grabbing to have that level of conviction and certainty? Unless he had a really, really nice outfit on. Like he spent money on his clothing. Now, for every good writer, you have to have a thesis that backs up your message. And my backup on that would be, when Jesus is being crucified as a traitor of the state, right? Roman guards were doing something.
I know where you're going.
I know you do. And the Roman guards were gambling over Jesus' what?
Clothes. His cloak. They wanted that robe.
They wanted the robe.
Yeah.
Now, Roman guards get paid pretty well. I mean, it's the most powerful empire in the world at this time. So it's not like it's a lowly prisoner's role. But you got to think about the egregiousness of what they're doing, as they're really trying to get the clothes that a traitor wore. So those had to be some really nice garments for, in my thesis, for these Roman guards to be battling over. And so my thought is, as Jesus is walking through this large crowd of people, to quote you, which is also in the Bible, this woman goes, oh, that's Jesus. That must be Jesus. Instills so much faith and conviction that she reaches out, grabs him, and is instantly healed because of her faith.
Man, dude.
How insane is that?
This is blowing my mind. People are going to be lighting up the comments. Tell me what you think about this. Is he full of crap? Like, where are we at?
Tell me.
Like, put it in the comments. I want to have a battle in the YouTube comment section. Was Jesus rich? He's given some pretty compelling evidence that I would never... Like, I have never thought about it. And I was a pastor for 13 years. I have a degree in biblical studies, and nobody ever taught me this stuff.
Come on, baby.
Listen, and certainly, I'm not going to say 100% that this is the actual thing, because I don't know yet. I'm processing it.
Of course.
At the same time, you guys are listening to this in real life, but of course, speaking of real life trading, we'll get to in a minute. But this is a compelling thing, because I think his garment, one of the things I remember about his garment, if I'm remembering correctly, is it was made without seams or
no
cuffs.
seams.
Yeah, there was. So that also was you know how big a piece of fine linen you'd have to have in order to fold it right, to sew it, to create. It'd be huge. Where, you make a shirt or a robe for somebody, you cut out pieces and sew them together. So it was fine linen. It was also seamless, and it had to be very nice, which I'd never really considered. And the interesting thing too about her grabbing the hem of his, which meant the end of his robe. Yeah, how would she know which one was his in a crowd of people?
To have that much faith, that much conviction.
Yeah, that's. So when did all this start for you? When did this Jesus was rich thing start? Well, did you have a moment of? I'm going to guess for a second that somebody came to you. You're wealthy. You've done really well for yourself, and said, You're not living right under God because you have a lot of money. Is that where this started? And you had to justify it? Like, where did this start?
What a question. What a question. No. Although that has happened far too many times, because again, people will say I'm materialistic. And that was the reason I went back to the clothing piece, is because Jesus wore such nice clothing that if you saw him in today's standards, if Jesus was alive right now in physical form as you and I are, he'd be driving a Rolls Royce or a Bentley, and he would have a private jet, for sure. And his clothes would be deemed materialistic, and he'd be dressed very, very nicely because he has a standard, King of Kings. I mean, if we think of king, we think they're going to be dressed nicely. The King of Kings, the God of Gods, Jesus, right? I mean, he's not going to be dressed nicely? Come on. So, saying that to say, I have been approached by that, but this particular discussion started as all good discussions should. In my opinion, the greatest conversations to have with good friends, good individuals, good business partners, sex, religion, politics, and money. Like, we have to be talking about one variation of those four with your family, with your friends, with your loved ones, with people you care about. You have to have these discussions because this is what's moving the world. February 28th, 2022. The reason I know the date so specifically is because I was doing another crazy, insane, stupid challenge. And I had to stay up really late that night. I was doing the calendar club, which is every single day you're working out. I was doing 100 push-ups times the day. So I was on February 28th, which was 2,800 push-ups that day. I had completed the entire month. So we're talking about 40,000 push-ups in a month. And it was like 9 p.m. I was on a very unique location. It's an island in the British Virgin Islands that I'm an investor in. And me and this guy who I'd love to get on your show, his name is Billy Alsbrooks. And this man hears from God. Like, this man knows God. He has a relationship with the divine. I think that's always beautiful, because there's a lot of people that preach scripture, but he preaches emotion. Like, he has a beautiful connection. And him and I just started having this conversation because he started asking me about money, and he started talking to me about investing. And I believe I said something very off-putting to him, something like, why are all Christians so broke? Because Jesus was really rich. And he's like, first of all, the Christians that you know are broke. The Christians I know are very wealthy because they follow the rich God, the rich Jesus. And I was like, what? Big, like, monumental shifts in my whole life. Because I thought for a second, at that moment, up until 2022, prosperity preachers, oh man, like Joel Osteen, like the big turnoffs. Mm-hmm. Huge churches. I was like, evil. People that were driving really nice cars that were also in Christendom. I go, evil. And it made me think, why do I think that? And so him and I had a 6-hour conversation from midnight till 6 a.m. as I'm doing push-ups on how rich Jesus was. And this guy is doing this because he carries around a Bible everywhere he goes. Like we carry around cell phones, Billy carries around his Bible. And I love this guy. He's a very, very prophetic, poetic, motivational artist. Very, very powerful man.
Love to meet him.
I'll introduce you to. And so just this conversation was just really, really in-depth and beautiful, and it just showed me how much I didn't know, because he kept proving me over and over how wrong I was about Christians being poor and broke.
But you already had a belief that Jesus was rich before you had that conversation, because that's what you said to him.
Yeah.
So where did it originate in your mind?
Well, why wouldn't he be? I think was probably it. It wasn't anything based on, like, it was the disalignment in my entire body and spirit for my whole life, because I grew up a Jehovah's Witness, as you might recall.
I forgot that.
Yeah.
I forgot all
But now
about
you remember.
that. Now I remember.
So I grew up a Jehovah's Witness, and I wouldn't say all of witnesses, but the vast majority of witnesses live under the poverty line. And
sure, yeah.
We are taught that there's no reason to have money, right? Don't store up things on earth because moths are going to eat them, and we're all going to die next week anyway when Jesus comes back and kills everybody in the largest genocide of all time. So there's no point in doing anything for tomorrow. And so that message was ingrained in me, but I was always like, why would a loving God do that? And so I just always had this disalignment where I just couldn't figure out why I was being told that God and Jesus and the whole world and this whole religion wanted you to be so poor, because I couldn't do anything, Jason, when I was poor. I wanted to help people, but guess what I was doing? Nothing. I wanted to donate to the charities. What charity was I donating to? None of them. I didn't have any money. My mom didn't have any money. I didn't have any money. We didn't have any money. And I always thought, how is all this impact happening? And so it was a disalignment, because I knew that Jesus should be rich. Of all people to be rich, why would he not be rich? I mean, is God poor? The Alpha and the Omega?
Every cattle on 1,000 hills belongs to him.
So it's like, where is this disalignment happening? And it was just one of those things where he gave me such beautiful guidance. So I give Billy so much credit for giving me this huge shift and then helping me back it up and then just really just opening my entire belief system to what's available.
So not to make what I'm about to say more materialistic than the intent, but based on the context of this conversation, there is a scripture, I think, I'm gonna forget where it is. I think it's in Philippians, but it says, "And my God will meet all your needs through his glorious riches in Christ Jesus." And he's talking about our needs. What do we need? And so for those of us who follow Christ, which I do, and unashamedly so, and everybody knows that, I think, is that my needs are always going to be met 100%. Through what? Through the riches in Christ Jesus. Now, I don't want to make that more materialistic than it might have been intended originally, but I think in the context of the conversation, it works. Now, also, I want you to think about the 23rd Psalm, "The Lord is my shepherd," right? Everybody, we read this at
every day,
funerals.
all the time.
People read at funerals. I meditate on it every day. It has become the clarion call of my life, especially in adverse times when I'm dealing with adversity. But think about what it says. "The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing." Now, "I shall not want" is the way most people are, but we don't talk like that. But what it means is, in modern day parlance, is I lack nothing. In other words, everything that I need is always provided. Now keep going. Now I'm going to go really fast to it. It goes,
I'm so excited.
So he says,
pumped.
he makes me lie down in green pastures. Well, what do sheep eat? They eat grass. So we're laying in the middle of abundance food. He leads me beside still waters. That's where I make a drink. He guides me on the right path for his name's sake. He keeps me alive. These are all things that the 23rd Psalm says. Then he says, "But even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'm not afraid, because you're with me. Your rod and staff, you comfort me." Okay, that part we're familiar with, the bad times. But what does he say next? He says, "You prepare a table for me in the presence of my enemies." So in the middle of all the crap that's hitting the fan, I have abundant food. Then he says, "You anoint my head with oil," which is an expensive way to refresh and rejuvenate people. And he says, "My cup overflows." Overflows.
Come on, baby.
So I meditate on this every day of my life. And in the context of this conversation, it's even more rich and full because it is about anti-lack. Now let's think about modern followers of Christ. Mother Teresa being the one that comes to mind first. Poor. Yes, no. Access, but personal riches, none.
Personal riches had none to her name.
But access to the wealth of the Catholic Church was a whole other conversation we're not getting into. But you can't do major things without capital. Human capital, financial capital, emotional capital, whatever it happens to be.
It has to be some level of capital. And to agree with your point, Jason, if we think about wanting or needing, all right, you said all my needs are met. All my needs have been met. I always love to challenge people with, okay, take your life as it is now, and I want you and all the listeners to do this as well. Take your life right now, 20 seconds, close your eyes, and just visualize how much money, net worth you have. Whatever number it is, all numbers are good numbers. Let's say it's $1 million, right? Your whole net worth, retirement accounts, house equity, cars, gold in your safe. All right, you can open your eyes. So now that we have that number, I want you to donate half of it. And what most people do almost instantly is they go into a place of panic. They go into a place of fear because they go, lack, scarcity. If I give half of my net worth away, I'll have half as much. I will not have nearly as much as I have now until they have what? That attachment.
Yep.
Once we begin to remove that attachment and we truly start giving, you begin to do what I call slip into faith. Because fear is what if. Faith is even if. even if I have half of my money, I give half of my money away to this amazing organization, charity, nonprofit, I know the Bible says my needs will always be taken care of. And guess what will happen that next month? It's not your job to know how. It's not your job to know what. But I have heard and seen and felt and personally experienced so many examples where you will get something back, if not greater, pretty quickly. And so you have a hard time when you start experiencing wealth of giving your money away. Because the more you give, the more you receive. And that's a formula. This is a formula for success because you start challenging people's emotional connection to money if they're forced to begin to give some of it away. And it starts creating that compelling, I will always be provided for what I need. When people tell me, oh, I don't need that much, I say donate more. Let's find out.
Yeah. The word enough is one of these words that we've weaponized against each other.
Agreed.
You have enough. You have enough.
You're
what
fine.
is enough?
You're fine.
What does enough mean? Enough means like, enough to me is selfish. I actually had a conversation with Brad Lee
tell me more.
on his podcast. We talked about this a little bit, and the haters were in the comments. That was terrible. I invite you to leave comments. That helps the algorithm.
Yeah.
But this idea of enough, like if I just say, well, I just want enough for me, but I have a wife and kids, well, that's selfish because I'm not providing for them. Okay, I just want enough for me and my wife and kids. Why is that not selfish? Because there's more people on the earth than me and my wife and two kids. There's my community. There's the poor of the world that need it. So enough, like what does enough even mean?
And where does that line
Where
get
does it
drawn?
stop? It stops with the people who live in your house. It stops with the people that you're blood related to. So that makes you a bad community member or neighbor, right? What is enough?
I only have enough for just to feed my family. That's all I need.
Yeah. Well, that may be all you need, but is that all you're supposed to be doing with it? Like there's so many blessings that could be, like money's fake, right? I mean, can we agree that it's a construct we've made up in our brains?
Totally.
Like money's fake, but it is the medium with which we've all agreed as humans that we're going to, this is the medium by which we're going to exchange value.
Yeah.
Like you have more money, your net worth is higher than mine. Like, so you have more of that thing we call money than I do. That means by definition, you can do more, whether that's take vacations, invest, give, whatever you want, you can do more than I can do. So if I say, well, I have enough, well, then I can't do as much as you. Well, you should want to do what he wants to do. Like he's got yachts and planes or whatever. I don't know what you got, but like, okay, but what about giving? Like, what if you gave $10 million away last year? I don't know what you gave. That's between you and God, but don't I want to do that too? This enough word has always bothered me.
It's so fun, man. It's a fun challenge. It's exciting because as you start playing around with not only the words, because you know this, our words create our world.
Yeah.
Right? And so if you're always like saying to yourself, oh, I have enough, I have enough, I have enough, God's gonna be like, all right, well, I guess you got it all figured out then. I'm not gonna give you more because apparently you don't need me. I'm just gonna hang out over here because you got enough.
Yeah.
And it's just this fascinating determination, truly, Jason, of where we get constructed and where we learn these things and never challenging them.
Yeah.
That's what I live on, is I challenge my beliefs frequently. I challenge other people's beliefs daily. And I really put ourselves into a space of uncomfort and questioning why not. Which is a great probably segue into, I'll give people, I love this example, when we're talking about wealth and money and abundance and flow and availability and access. You've heard of the company Tesla?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Every single day, Tesla moves $90 billion of US currency every day. In and out. That's $250 million a minute. Just Tesla, that's one stock on one exchange on one market. 90 billion. Now, if your jaw is not hitting the floor similar to
a lot of
Jason's,
money.
like that is almost an inconceivable amount of money. I mean, every few seconds, tens of millions of dollars are flowing in and out of the stock. And the reason I like to bring that up as an example to people is I go, okay, how do you know what playing small feels like? Because I do it every day. When I show up to Tesla and I'm putting $1 million or whatever, $1 million, like,
That's nothing.
I'm not even on the radar. Like, I'm not even an order ticket in the room with $1 million. Like, you're not even showing up on the screen. And that's one company, Jason. So, and that's the stock market. That's not even real estate or commercial market or shipping or harbors. There's so much wealth out there. There's so much wealth. And when you mentioned earlier that money is fake, I would love to argue that most people are in this conversation where they're always dabbling with decimals when we need to converse with commas. And every time you add a comma to your net worth, what you're really doing is adding a digit. And that digit, very often, a lot of people are thinking about is a 0. And 0 actually literally represents and signifies nothing. So if you want to go from $1 million to 10 million, what are you doing? You're adding a 0.
Nothing.
You're adding nothing at all, which is the definition of what you said earlier. This whole thing is fake anyway. And so it's worth it for us to go into our minds and go, why do I have all these beliefs and fears about the things I have these beliefs and fears about? Why don't I own this? Why don't I interact with this? Why don't I know anything about venture capital or angel investing or private equity funds? These are things I knew nothing about 3.5 years ago. I'm like, why don't I know anything about that? Why don't I know a lot about SECs and FINRAs and syndications? Like, why can't I go out and raise more money for projects? And that all happened in 2020, right? Fell into my lap. Opportunities to go out and raise capital with a few phone calls for individual projects. And over the last 4 to 5 years, I've done about $80 million of capital raising, which again, sounds like a lot. But I'm the smallest toad in the pond that can't even be found on a map. Like, it's a very small amount of money compared to a lot of people that do $100 million a month of capital raising. Like your boy GC, Grant Cardone, Brad Lee's raised a lot of capital in his past for certain projects. It's amazing at the scope. And so what we get to do is we get to sit back in abundance for a second, Jason, and we get to feel it, and we get to understand prosperity and know that every single person watching this is playing small, myself included, yourself included. We are still playing small. There are still adaptations of fear that we believe, and our mission, my mission, our goal is to figure out ways to move past those.
How do we take what we're talking about and not allow it to corrupt us into materialism?
Work on it. Work on what that means for us. Right? Like, what is the definition of materialism? And when do you need to shape? And when do you need to shift? When do you need to zag? When do you need to zig? Mm-hmm. For me, the way I do it, my brother, is I spend time doing physical activities because the ego doesn't exist after 50 miles on the legs. There's no ego. Your body's just a temple now. You're just. So I love doing endurance sports because your body and the endurance sports are designed accidentally to put your body in a place where it detaches from reality and you only have all of your fears and beliefs and worries and trepidations inside of you. And you start really figuring out what are you actually afraid of. Because for me, when people are saying, hey, you're materialistic, that means, and you're going to love this example, that means that I'm afraid of someone coming up to me and saying, hey, Jerremy, you're greedy. That's a fear.
Yeah.
I don't want people to think I'm greedy. Guess what? Happens anyway. Happens anyway. Last year, I donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to charities, different nonprofits, different organizations. And I still got called greedy by the people that donated it with me. Right? They were a part of this organization that we donated money to these organizations, and I still got called greedy. And it's like, what are you going to do? So for me, I work on I work on myself, I work on my peace, I work on my knowing. And I work on the actual realization of what is materialism to me. Yeah. How do I actually define it? And what ways can I slowly chip away? I heard Shannon Sharp I really like what he says. I'm not particularly a watch guy because I lose them all the time. Same thing with sunglasses. Like there are some things I just lose, and I'm working on that. It's a habit or a fear or something that I haven't figured out yet. But I lose watches all the time. I lose sunglasses all the time. I lose my wallet all the time.
You used to. That's what you need to start thinking.
I need to start saying that.
Yeah.
I used to do that very frequently.
Yeah.
Shannon Sharp said, you wear your watch to tell what time it is. I wear my watch to tell you how valuable my time is. I was like, let's go, Shannon, let's go. Because in my mind, again, at some point in my life, I viewed watches as some type of materialistic pursuit. Yeah. Why would you have a watch when you can just have a cell phone? Now, sometimes it's just personal preference, right? I like some watches better than others. This one's amazing. This one's going to tell me so many pieces of my internal vibration when I go do a race in 36 hours. I'm going to need this thing on. I use it for that particular reason. So if it has a use case, if it has a scenario, but really it comes down to what is your deepest heart desire? What do you actually, truly in this life want? Because if you know what you want and you can start expressing it outwardly more frequently, then you will continue to get rewarded. Because when God places a dream in your heart, God's not testing your bank account. He's testing your faith. Every dream that every single person have watching this podcast, that dream costs more than their budget. They don't have enough money for the big dream, the big one, the resort, the healing center, the car, the houses, the ranches where so many people are getting healed from sicknesses, right? Whatever, the businesses, the apartment complexes, the nonprofits, all those dreams cost more money than the people that have watching it. But it's available to you. It's accessible. It's hours away and one decision and one commitment away.
I love it. All right, so real life trading. So you're in stock markets. I mean, you're the Tony Robbins of stock trading. When did you decide that was what you wanted to do? Was this connected to this realization of Jesus being rich and getting into money, or how did you get into stock trading?
Yeah, no, those were the spiritual journey that I'm on is probably 5 years old, maybe 4. But realistically, the stock trading for me, man, I love stocks so much because it's second grade math. In fact, wealth is second grade math repeated consistently. I'm gonna see if you're ready for the stock market. All right, here's my quiz. You ready?
I'll go.
What's 1,000? So you buy 1,000 shares. Doesn't matter the company. Buy 1,000 shares. You buy them. Stock goes up $3. How much did you make?
$3,000.
Now multiply that by 200 days a year.
$600,000.
$600,000. That math fell into my lap at the age of 18. I started investing at a little bit of a younger age. I watched the movie Forrest Gump. So when he said that, he goes, Lieutenant Dan invested into some kind of fruit company.
Fruit company, Apple.
Said, we don't have to worry about money no more. And I said, good, one less thing. And if you go back and watch it, it's clear. Like, he opens this letter from Apple. I didn't know what it was the first time I watched it. I was 6. So I asked my dad, what's investing? What's the fruit company? So he tells me about Apple and Apple computers. And I beg him to buy some shares. And we eventually buy some shares. We bought $3,000 worth of Apple, like 1995, the bottom, luckily. Sold those shares in 2000 because we were moving from Georgia to Florida. That was a $34 million mistake.
Oh,
$34 million mistake. So I sold those shares that I bought at the bottom of 1995 with $3,000 and 2000. Took that money, took $12,000, so I 4X'd my money. My dad gave me 12 grand as a 12-year-old, and I was like, I'm the richest human in the world. So from 12, I knew what I wanted to do. And I went to school for finance at the Warrington College of Business. Go Gators, University of Florida. Great college experience. Did what college guys do in college, which was not learn the stock market, because they also didn't teach it. Right? Yeah. They weren't telling me about stocks and options. I mean, the best thing I got was like a 2-minute discussion on dividends, but I never really understood stocks. So I fell into it when this cute little lady named Regina was passing around 401k packets. I worked at Nationwide Insurance at the time. Great company, nothing great, only great things to say about them. got my 401k packet, and I said, I'm just going to read this. So I went home and read the 401k packet from cover to cover, and the things I learned about 401ks, IRAs, loans to yourself, I mean, amazing information, diversification, how they comprise the funds, how they choose the funds. I mean, I learned, like, this is a finance degree. This was my finance degree. So I learned how to trade my 401k. Bought First Majestic Silver, ticker symbol AG. They're still around to this day. At $9, I bought 1,000 shares, which was $9,000, which is all the money that I had in my 401k. It went up to 12. I sold it, made $3, and I did that math. $3,000 times 200 days a year is 600 grand. That is 58 times more than I make at my work. I'm gonna figure out how to do this full time. I started at 18 and a half. And I've been hooked ever since. My 20s sucked. It was stories of making millions, losing millions, making millions, losing millions. I lost 3 times. 3 times from 3 unrelated, crazy, wild, just totally distinct circumstances. And the day I realized that they were all gifts and they were all to help me realize that they were being done for me and not to me, and I stopped being a victim and I became a victor, my whole perspective started shifting. And I said, okay, I got you. I'm gonna listen this time. I'm gonna stop asking for lessons. I'm gonna stop making my life lessons into a life sentence. I'm gonna figure this out, and I'm gonna stop doing what I've done. And I started buying a bunch of stocks and Bitcoin and crypto in 2016, and then 2017 became a multimillionaire again accidentally because markets went crazy, and I was like, that was the 4th time that I made a lot of money. I was like, I'm not going to lose it this time. So 2017, I just started a journey of really, really deep inner work. Deep inner work. All the prayers, all the temples, all the monasteries, all the wherever I can go, all the gods, studying them, praying to them, learning from them, reading about them, undergoing transformations, meditating, praying, learning. It's a really, really, really deep journey that I'm very, very happy that I went on.
So when did real life trading start?
I founded, I'm coming up on 10 years, dude. I founded Real Life Trading November 5th, 2014. And the first 3 years were really cool. I got sued, so that sucked, but...
By an individual?
Different companies, different organizations, because I was giving all the information for free. So I still have that business model where 98% of my content is totally free. Because a lot of people think, when they think stock market, and they see a really high energy, like hyped up, I'm always this way, by the way, this is just how I am. They're like, this guy's on coke, and he's trying to take all my money. I'm like, all right, well, I'm not on coke, and here's all the education for free. So either take it or not. But I'll give you a bachelor's degree in the stock market with no cost to you other than your time. And there's a lot of people that have taken me up on it, and it works. I mean, the education's there. It's very, very good. But there's a lot of organizations and companies that did not like the fact that I was giving away their trade secrets for free. Even though they're not trade secrets, they just didn't want me to be in business.
So what's your revenue model then? Does real life trading have a revenue model?
We do. We have a few, man. We do really well. We're going to hit 11 million in a couple of weeks, but it's like, we have 4 or 5 different revenue models. Again, all of it's 98% free. Our money's made from that 2%, which is kind of like a grocery store, if you know that.
Yeah.
Grocery stores live on very, 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 very small margins, but Publix does pretty well.
Yes, they do.
But they live on really small margins. So trading is my pleasure. I bring people in, they get all this stuff for free. They get a lot of entertainment, education for free. And then I have affiliate arrangements where if they go to a broker, I get paid to send them there. We have coaching, we have mentorships. One of our favorite business models that people interact with the most is we have a live day trading platform. And so people can log on and watch myself or one of my other 15 instructors that I've hand-selected, hand-picked, hand-taught over the last decade. They watch them interact with the market and trade. And it's entertaining, but it's also profitable. And so those people get to watch and get real time. Oh man, what's Costco gonna do today? They just announced XYZ, whatever. What do you guys think about Costco? We'll pull up Costco. Man, Costco is going to drop pretty hard. And this is why I think that. And here would be a trade if you want to take it. So let's see if we can go make 2 or 3 points on 1,000 shares on Costco. So 1,000 shares on Costco is like an $830,000 investment. And the other day it dropped like 6%. Yesterday, actually. Yeah. Yesterday it dropped 6%. So it's like if you shorted $800,000 of Costco Friday, I mean, you made 6% of your money on the downside. So knowing how to make money when the market goes up, knowing how to make money when the market goes down, knowing how to make money when the market goes sideways, it opens people to ideas. It doesn't mean they have to become a full-time, like this is all the only way you make money. But it also opens you up to the question, well, why not? If you know it exists and you know the opportunity is there, why not be able to use it? And then they get to come up with my favorite age-old, I don't have the time, dude. Right? It's the best. It's like you have the exact same amount of time that I have. Everyone has the same amount of time. There are ways to optimize it. And I know you're a specialist at that. Mm-hmm. You do that with businesses. Mm-hmm. You help CEOs and the people in the companies optimize their time. And you help people restructure their belief on their value and their worth, pull out of the business and get into their zone of genius so that the company can operate more efficiently and effectively, aka increasing time value. That's your specialty.
Right.
And you help companies go from millions to tens of millions by doing that. And so ultimately, that's what we do with trading is we let people optimize their time, have as much free education as you can handle. And if at any point in time you want to speed up that learning curve, you can pay for that and we will be happy to work with you.
I just watched the other night Dumb Money.
What a film.
Did you see it? You see it?
Of course. I've watched every
Justin,
stock
have you seen this yet?
film.
So
I've watched it. Shame on you.
You got to watch it.
Shame on
I
you.
thought about you when I was watching this. I'm talking to my apprentice, Justin, who also does trading work with Jeremy. But yeah, I didn't know anything about the movie. I'd heard about this Robinhood and GameStop thing, but I didn't really know anything about it. So it was really hot here last week. I mean, like oppressively hot weather. So normally I'm sitting out on the back patio hanging out, in the evenings, but it was so hot. So we just sat in the living room and watched the movie, and I turned that one on. And dude, I don't understand half the crap they were talking about. I mean, I get the story, but fascinating, man. I don't want to get into it today because I don't want to waste the time on the show, but I want to talk to you later off show. Like, tell me how this worked. I don't understand the short thing. I don't know how that worked, but great movie. Go watch Dumb Money. Well, it's about the GameStop stock.
Can we spend 3 minutes? I bet I can explain shorting to you in 3 minutes.
Yeah, do it.
So you know how to buy something. Buy at 10, sell at 30. You understand that?
No, I don't. I don't know anything about stocks. I own no stocks.
So, no, it doesn't matter. Stocks is irrelevant. Baseball card. Would you like to buy a baseball card at 10 and sell it at 30?
Oh, I didn't understand what you said. Yes, yeah. 10 to 30, make $20.
All day long, right?
Gotcha.
You'll do that forever.
Gotcha.
Doesn't matter what you're buying at 10, you're selling at 30, beautiful. Who are you selling it at 30 to?
Somebody that wants it.
Okay. So now I'm going to pause, and let's say that I have a baseball card. We're going to use baseball cards as an example that you know is valuable. But you've also know that Justin has one that he wants to sell. Same baseball card. I don't know who's playing baseball card. Let's just say Mickey Mantle for ease of purposes, okay? We both have a Mickey Mantle card. Now you go, hey Newsome, can I borrow that Mickey Mantle card from you? I want to hold on to it for a little bit. Maybe make some money off of it. I'll give you your card back. I just want to sell it. You go list that card on eBay for $1,000. You know eBay. Mm-hmm. Someone buys a card for $1,000, right? Willing buyer, someone in Hong Kong, they're happy to buy the Mickey Mantle card for $1,000. So you sold them something that you do not own.
Right.
But you made $1,000, right? Maybe.
I don't know how that works.
Well, no.
But I got to give the dude the money back because it's his card, right?
Yes. So you have $1,000+, but you are negative one card. So then you have to do a math formula. We have to balance out the math. You go and you know that Justin wants to sell his Mickey Mantle card for $500. So what do?
So I take my 1,000, buy his for 500, and give the guy the card back. I make $500.
That's shorting. That's it. That's literally how it works.
Okay.
So you sell stock to people that are a willing buyer. So you've heard the term buy low, sell high. Everyone has. What about sell high and buy low? So stock goes up, you sell it, and then if it goes down, you buy it back with all of your cash that you receive from selling it to a bank, hedge fund, who cares, a willing buyer. And then because it doesn't, it can go up. If it goes down, you take all the cash, your $1,000, and you buy it back at a cheaper source, aka the public markets, for a lesser price, and you split the difference. That's shorting.
And so that's the reason the hedge fund went out of business, because this dude on Roaring Kitty or whatever his name is ended up
took all the shares.
Yeah, bought all of them.
So he took all the shares. So when they went to go buy the shares back, where are they going to buy the shares?
They don't have.
They didn't have any. So they had to wait till other people started selling their shares back to the hedge funds at much higher prices.
And that's why they shut down the Robin Hood thing.
And there you go, buddy.
All right,
and that's why
I'm understanding. My wife and I were like, we don't totally understand this, but that was a great movie.
And that's why your buddy Citadel comes in and goes, no. Okay, Robin Hood, we got you. We're going to shut everything down for 2 or 3 days so that no one can transact. We're going to collect all the shares, give you some. Yeah. Definitely some insider stuff, super sketchy. I hope someone goes to jail over it because it's illegal. And I'm also very happy that Roaring Kitty did what he did. I think that's the markets, man. He didn't do anything illegal. He simply said, this is what I'm buying. This is my thesis.
He goes, I like the stock.
I like the stock. And people got behind it. And that's legal, man. People do it all the time. It's called insider trading. Some people call it insider trading. Like you have to have insider knowledge that no one else has. He had the knowledge that everyone else had, put his money on the line and convinced other people to do the same, and just did a math formula.
Yeah.
Because if you have a limited supply and an increasing demand, what happens to price?
Oh, it goes way up.
AKA Bitcoin.
So, do you know, is this guy still around? Is he still out there trading? Like, is he becoming well known now?
He's really good. He's a couple points away from $1 billion.
Wow. That's all within what, since 2020?
Yeah. Yeah, let's say 5 years. So he turned like tens of thousands into billions.
That is crazy.
It's incredible.
All right, you got to sign me up for your program, man. I got to learn how to trade
It's really it's fascinating because I'll tell people this all the time. I'm not the greatest trader in the world. I'm not, dude. My mentor is Dennis Dick. He's half cyborg, half human, so it might not count. But I'm like the Dan Marino of trading. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. People like me. I'm cool. I'm good looking, and I have a bar in Miami. Like, that's it. I went to the Super Bowl, didn't win, unfortunately. So you're not going to have me in the discussions of the greatest all time in this particular field. My specialty is teaching.
Yeah.
I really, really like teaching. If a high school history teacher made $600,000 a year and could travel and do anything that he wanted any time of the day and teach all of his kids from anywhere in the world, I'd probably be a high school history teacher.
I think a lot of people probably will.
Yeah.
So let me ask you some questions about success. You've been very successful. We've seen this through the conversation that we've had today. People go look you up at reallifetrading.com. What unlocks success for you? Why do you think you've been successful? There has to be one thing, and what is that one thing?
I don't want to give you a dumb answer. I actually want to give you a really good answer because this is going to infuriate a lot of people in the comments, which is great for the algorithm, as you said earlier. The very, very, very first thing I did was define success.
All right.
That was step one. Because if you know what success is, then you can have a target. And if you have a target, you can at least aim for it or hit it. And I did one better. I made success very easy to obtain. Now, a lot of people are going to go, Newsome, you're supposed to make success very hard. Right? Success is supposed to be this 10 years, $10 million. No, I'm successful right now because my definition of success allows me to be. Our definitions create our beliefs, and our beliefs create everything.
Yep, everything.
So my definition of success is anytime and every time I recognize an opportunity, I am massively successful. I'm gonna get woo for 120 seconds. When I say woo, I mean like spiritual, energetic. If you are something, you attract that thing. The more you are of that thing, you will attract more of that thing. And so what I did, I don't know why or how, maybe it was an Alan Watts. I used to love watching Alan Watts, I still do. Maybe it was Zig Ziglar, maybe it was Jen Rohn, maybe it was Eric Thomas, the hip hop preacher, maybe it was Les Brown, maybe it was Tony Robbins. I watched and listened to a lot of mentors. One of them, at some point in time, helped me realize that if I changed my definition to something so easy that I could obtain it instantly, all the time, always, then I would have it all the time, always. And if I had something all the time, always, I don't need more of it because I am it. And when you are something, things will just simply attract to you more. Because you're now in that frequency and that vibration. And if you start vibrating at the same energy, the things around you will do what? They'll vibrate at that same energy. That's why people love music. Because music is a vibration that pierces your soul and changes your emotion. But imagine if you could do that with wealth or with money. And that's what I did. Now, it didn't work until like 2016, 2017, 2018. But I started adopting that mindset at 2013, 2012. So it took me 5 or 6 years for it to really sink in, because I had a lot of other definitions that counteracted that one, like materialistic, greed, a few others that I had to like circumnavigate to help me be wealthy, be rich, be attractive, be confident, and be successful. And when I started emulating all those things, I just started attracting more of it. And it was the wildest thing ever, man. Everything just started shifting so quickly.
So by that definition, do you consider yourself to be successful?
So successful, dude. I'm so successful. It's wild.
I love it. Yeah. Now, I want you to put your coach hat on as we close our conversation.
Okay.
And you want to give some advice to the listeners. What would you say is the best piece of advice? It could be related to anything, but like, you've been successful, so what do you advise them to do to also be successful?
The best way for someone to have success the fastest is to change their words. It's easy and it's free. My father was the hallmark of this. He had such an eloquent way of speaking. He had such a unique vocabulary, and he'd always say words. People were like, what are you saying? Like, he would use the word rambunctious all the time. He's like, why are you so rambunctious? And he just had such a beautiful element to the way he spoke. Shakespeare's working vocabulary was 69,000 words. The current average American has a working vocabulary of 2,300 words. And we'll use 7 words all the time. Like, right? And you start blending in the same words over and over and over and over. You're never using anything verbose or beautiful or delicious. So you're always using the exact same words. Now, when listeners hear that, they're going to say, well, that's too easy and that doesn't work. Which I would say, if you stop using the word work and you begin using the word easy more often in your common language, your entire life will begin to shift radically. You might not make as a lot of money early, but you'll start enjoying work more because you no longer work. Now you get paid to play. You get paid to serve. You get paid to create an experience. That's why I told people when I was a waiter. I was a waiter in an Indian restaurant. That was like one of my first jobs in high school. And I'd always come up to the table and go, welcome to this experience that's going to change your life. My name is Jerremy. I'd love to serve you today. And I never wrote anything down. I'd always listen to them and take their order and memorize it. And it always wowed people. And guess what? Got a big tip every single time. I mean, my minimum tip was like $60. So when we're talking about the words, people want things to be so difficult and so arduous and challenging. But what if you were born enough? What if you were just born rich and born wealthy and born deserving? You didn't have to do anything. It starts to shift your paradigm of, even though you don't have to do anything, you get to do everything, whatever that is. And once you can align with the things that you really want to do, that fires you up, that excites you, because if you're stressed, that means that you're not doing the things that light you up and you're doing more of the things you dislike. For me, emails, I don't like doing emails. Everyone knows. I have 3 people that manage my email inbox. 3. That's crazy. I don't even like emails. So I make sure they text me and they send me what I need to reply to, and I log into my email and I answer my emails. Or I forward it to a text conversation. But ultimately, the thing that I really care the most about and understanding is if you can create easy, simple patterns in your life and you change the words you use the most, your entire world will shift dramatically and instantly.
Well, thank you for flying to Nashville and doing this show. This has been a great conversation. Congratulations on your success.
Thank you, man.
And I wish you even more continued success as you continue to live out the center of your joy, your passion, your purpose.
Thank you,
as a
brother.
trader. I love it. The energy is infectious, and I hope that the listeners are watching this. If you got to go watch this on YouTube, watch this back. But Jerremy Newsome is Jerremy Newsome on Instagram, and reallifetrading.com, right? I got that right. So reallifetrading.com. So if you're interested in getting some of that 98% of what they do for free, go to reallifetrading.com and sign up. Big thanks to Jerremy for coming out here. We're at the Ariston in Nashville today, recording live and in person. Thank you, listener, for taking the time out of your day to listen to this really crazy, interesting conversation that started off about Jesus being rich. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to this again because that was some cool stuff. But please tune in again next time when we talk with yet another very successful entrepreneur about his or her journey to success. I hope you've liked this. Please subscribe, rate, review, leave comments. I mean, all that doesn't take but a couple of minutes, and it really helps the podcast get higher in the algorithm. More people can see it and listen to it. So thank you for doing that. As always, I am the real Jason Duncan, and Jesus is King.
Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Follow Jason on social media at The Real Jason Duncan. See you again next time here on The Root of All Success.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.